Welcome back to Season 3 of PODSHOTS, Episode 21. We kick off Season 3 with my good friend Joey Langenbrunner, who is the U.S. Deputy Head of Mission for the Free Republic of Liberland. Our beverage of choice this week to start Season 3 is coffee. Yes, we kind of forgot to do shots, but don't worry, there will be plenty of shots in Season 3, and we had an amazing conversation with Joey, so I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. So chill, sit back, relax, and enjoy Episode 21, or should I say, Episode 1 of Season 3 of PODSHOTS.
I have no previous knowledge about this project Liberland that you are heavily involved with from the looks of things. So I thought we could start off and just begin with how you would explain the project to like a layman who has no previous experience of that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I actually want to back up a little bit. Essentially, the Free Republic of Liberland, we're essentially starting a new country. But let's backtrack a little bit. Why the hell would you want to start a new country? So with what's going on, especially here in the U.S., I swear everyone's like civil war, and it's just probably not going to happen. I really don't think so, but it's kind of stressful. It's kind of annoying. And it's sometimes you get to the point where it's just no one really fits your ideals of what you want in your society. If you want this, if you want that, if you want liberal, conservative, or a little twist of that, a little twist of that, it's just, and sometimes you'll look all over the world and just see no country fits exactly what you want, so might as well just, start over.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a lot to get to that point, if you're trying, because I try to work in the political scene here, and it's so stupid. It's just not even worth it. It's
so you don't want to add to the fire. You don't want to jump into a machine that can probably not be stopped at this point.
Yeah. And I don't want to force, people to live by my crazy ideas and, the things that, I'm into anyways. It's just if half the country wants this and half the country wants that, and you want, this way, that over there, just go over there.
Yeah, I understand. But okay, so Liberland is basically a new nation, and we'll get into whether it's recognized or not in a moment, but it's essentially going to be a new nation. It already exists, right? Kind of.
Correct. Yes.
And, but how did it come to be? What were the events that kind of set that in motion? Because obviously you can't just walk to somewhere on the planet and say, okay, we're going to set up. Well, you can, but it's probably not.
That's kind of what we did, but
right.
There's a little, there's a little more to that. So, let's first talk about, kind of how it happened, and then, what presented the opportunity for this to happen, if that makes sense. So we have this gentleman, I'm this Czech guy, which is our president. His name is Vít, and I'm going to butcher his last name because I cannot say Czech last names at all, but Vít Angelica. I'm terrible at it. If he watches this, he's going to be like, oh God, like Americans. Anyways, he ran for office over in the Czech Republic. He lost, and his opponent said, why don't you just go create your own country with your crazy radical ideas? Why don't you just go create your own country? He's like, okay. And so, how do you create a country? You want to find land that's unclaimed. It's not like we're trying to start a war or a coup or anything violent. We're not going to take our ideologies that far. There's a name for that. And so he essentially just went onto Wikipedia and just typed in no man's land, and there was this small piece of land in between Croatia and Serbia that was unclaimed, and then there was also this land that was between Egypt and North Sudan that was unclaimed.
I feel like there's an opportunity here for an entrepreneur that's listening to create an online course on how to find unclaimed land and sell that to people who are like trying to find out what they want to get into next, you know?
So all you have to do is just go to Wikipedia. It's like the wiki, like start a new country, go to Wikipedia, look for no man's land or bribe government.
It's amazing that there's no man's land at all today. Everything's taken.
Well, let me get into like how the hell that even happens. Mm-hmm. So a little history lesson. I don't know how much you guys or your listeners are familiar with the whole Yugoslavia existence, but essentially, so like that. So Liberland is in between Croatia and Serbia. So before, way back in the day, that whole area where the Balkans. So if you're looking at a map of Europe, it's like southeast. So that all area, Balkans, was basically like this like socialist republic of Yugoslavia. So heavy authoritative, just and whatnot. And so like Serbia, Croatia, Slovenia, Montenegro were all just basically just one country. And I think North Macedonia was part of it at that time. Country didn't survive that long, so they kind of broke up. And when they broke up, it was not a good breakup. They're all like killing each other. Like basically we're getting on levels of like possible like genocide, and like ethnic cleansing on each side. You got like Christians, Orthodox Christians, and Muslims like all in that territory with, like a lot of like Turkish influence, a lot of pain over, hundreds of years of just all coming just not good stuff.
There's actually, I think, a movie on that. I saw it a long time ago, but I remember it was shocking because it was a no holds barred kind of depiction of what really happened in that area during that time. And I think the UN was like a huge presence, and their troops were kind of not really allowed to get involved, but they were there just to kind of help keep the peace. And it was one soldier's kind of, documentary or experience of events that happened, and it was awful, the kinds of stuff that I think it was called Savior. So if anyone's interested in watching that movie, you can check it out. But it was about like the Serbian kind of wars and disasters and things that happened. So I can imagine how bad it was.
Yeah. And there's a lot of controversial about it, because essentially, unlike Yugoslavia, at the end of the day, it was everyone trying to break apart from Serbia. So Serbia was trying to keep, Yugoslavia together, while everyone wanted to break away. And so, anyways, fast forward, to kind of our modern day. So really, when you're trying to like define the borders, there's still a little bit of struggle, with that. So you have like the whole Kosovo thing and Serbia thing, what's going on there. Cause like, that's basically like Serbian territory, but there's a bunch of like Albanians there, and then they said, hey, we're totally different from you. We want our own countries. Like that's controversial within itself, especially in today's news. But what's still really not fixed today is the border between Croatia and Serbia. Why is there kind of like an issue, and how does that tie in with Liberland? So way back in the day before Yugoslavia, and hopefully I don't lose you guys here, but the border between Serbia and Croatia was historically the Danube River. So if you guys want to like pull up a map and like look where Croatia and Serbia, and you see where the Danube River is, that's historically where the border has been. When it was all Yugoslavia, it was one country, borders didn't really matter. But what Yugoslavia did was they changed the flow of the Danube River to essentially make it easier for, trading and like bigger boats to get down, the river, instead of it going like this and, shallow at some points and deep in some points. It just wasn't good for trading. So, they did a bunch of engineering projects and changed the flow of the river essentially. So, when Yugoslavia breaks up, what's the border? Is it where the Danube River used to flow? Or is it where it flows now? So where it flows now gives more territory to Serbia. But where the Danube River used to be, it gave more territory to Croatia. So it's so still to this day, if you look on Google Maps between the border of Croatia and Serbia, especially like the northern part, like right under Hungary, the border just kind of goes random, kind of like through the Danube River, but doesn't follow the Danube River. If you look on any like Serbian website, you see where the border is. It's just where the Danube River is. So it's not quite settled. And, and if Croatia, they have joined the EU, if they want to join the Schengen area, one of their requirements is that they need to solve all border disputes. And as you know, basically every European country wants to join the EU, minus your place, Clement, there in the UK. That's a whole nother thing.
That's not
So, some people want to leave, some people want to enter. So, all these countries in the Balkans, including Serbia, they want to eventually join the EU. So like they need to solve this border dispute, but there's a lot of like nationalism, especially with, how many deaths happen in that area. There's still like a lot of hate and stuff like that. But that was like 25 years ago. So everyone that's about our age, we don't care, like them over there. We like to drink as much as, them over there. Doesn't matter. But, anyone who's like 30 or over, like remembers that, not cool. So anyways, the treaty that they wrote up, and I won't get into the details, but what really brings up this area is that all the land that is on the east side of the Danube River is essentially claimed by both Croatia and Serbia. But the area that is on the west side of the Danube River is not claimed by either. It's kind of weird and complicated, but like this is how weird this treaty was. But so Serbia, Croatia would claim like the small pockets of land on the Croatian side of the Danube, then they would lose claim to this area of land over here that's like 10 times bigger. We're literally not talking about like much land at all. There's no natural resources, literally just like swampland and forest here. But it's really, I'm just like nationalism at the end of the day, probably for worse. And so this land has just been, this small pocket of land has been unclaimed. There's like small little pockets and essentially kind of like took the biggest. So
how big are we talking about here? Are we talking like, what would be like a reference for the size of this place?
Yeah. So the territory is about 7 kilometers of land. So that's about 2.5 times the size of a place unlike Monaco. So Monaco, right. Monaco, and then a half of Monaco. So like it's big enough to like build, like a little city. But since it's been unclaimed for like over 25 years, since like 1991, since the fall of Yugoslavia, it's like the last country to claim that territory was, like for all intents and purposes, was Yugoslavia. So if basically both Croatia and Serbia is like, we don't own it, they do, because they're trying to get, them to claim that land so they lose the claim over here. I know it's kind of complicated. It's like, hopefully I don't lose your listeners there, but essentially the land has been unclaimed since 1991. And in 2015, that's when Vít, kind of got fed up with, his political system there, searched for no man's land, went there with his buddy and his girlfriend at the time and stuck a flag.
So hold on. So, okay. This blows my mind. What blows my mind is, and I need you to explain it to me. How can someone do that? How can someone just go and put a flag down somewhere? And, I'm assuming you don't have to pay anyone. You don't have to sign any forms or anything because it's unclaimed. So it doesn't belong to anyone. And then how does that one person keep their claim on that land?
Sure. So that gets into what's been going on for the past 5 years. So the country was formed in 2015, April 13th, which is Thomas Jefferson's birthday. So like heavily influenced by, like American ideals and stuff like that, on the U.S. Constitution, and and that kind of stuff. So again, like, that's a great question. Like, there's no forms. Like, who do we let know? Like, hey, this is our territory now. So that's what we're working on right now. So what we're doing right now is that essentially we're trying to raise money. We're doing a lot of like diplomatic things from behind the scenes. So if it's like, hey, we're doing this in Serbia, we're doing this in Croatia, we're doing X, Y, and Z in this country to sign some kind of deal under the table. And, it's like one of those situations with, like Taiwan. Is Taiwan an independent country or is it part of China? Well, it's basically just comes down to money and political maneuvering. So that's what we're focusing on. And that's what, so currently I'm in DC, moved here to do, like various like lobbying projects. I also started a nonprofit that we're doing like diplomatic aid. So if we're trying to get like country A to recognize us, then we basically give them a bunch of aid, and, then we start opening up a conversation then. So, like, let's say we get like 10 countries to recognize us, in the next like 3-4 years. That's how we try to hold on to that territory. Is anything there physically? No. But before we build physical infrastructure, we need to build diplomatic infrastructure. So I don't want to like go like full force in this, because your listeners are probably like still trying to like wrap their minds on like, how the hell did you, like, can you just like claim like unclaimed territory? So on a kind of pause here to see if you guys have any questions or comments.
Yeah. So like, if Clement and I wanted to take a romantic getaway together to Liberland, I think we talked about this last time, but like, is there an airport there, or do you have to land in the neighboring country and fly over, or like, how do you even get there?
Yeah, sure. So you would fly into like Belgrade, Serbia. You would take a 2-hour car drive to the town of Apatin, Serbia, which is right on the Danube River. Liberland is also on the Danube River. And then we got a boat called the Bitcoin Freedom Boat. We kind of do like the whole blockchain and cryptocurrency thing too. And you could rent out the boat on Airbnb and go up that way.
You've been?
I have not yet. I was going to go this year, but the whole COVID thing happened.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
So I've been working for them for the past 3 years, all from the US, and actually haven't been there yet, mostly because just like COVID thing and funds and, and all that fun stuff.
And I assume this is like because I've looked at your LinkedIn and I've spoken to Brandon about you, but this is your full-time gig, right? You're fully involved in promoting Liberland as a nation.
So I would say it's more of like a part-time job, maybe like 20, 30 hours a week, but it's not like my full-time job. So,
right. Okay.
I got like a day job that pays the bills and stuff like that. When you're starting to, do a project like this, it's not like we're gonna have like a lot of money to pay a bunch of people. Do we have like staff, in our office and a few other people that are working full-time for us? Sure. We get like a few people that are like going through applications, doing this, doing that, and they get paid. Right. But as you can imagine, this project requires hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And so if it's like every penny is just like, there is, 10 crucial things that, every dollar is going towards, and it's really not going towards, let's say like people like me. So like essentially I'm like volunteering, but the way that we do get paid, and it's just kind of like a funny thing. So I'm sure your listeners are familiar with like Bitcoin and stuff like that. And we get funded by like a lot of cryptocurrency. So like all like these, like Bitcoin, like millionaires, like this is one of the projects that like they're throwing their money into, just FYI. So we do get like a lot of our funding from all like these, like Bitcoin, like millionaires and stuff like that. But anyways, our national currency is going to be a cryptocurrency. So, it's going to be a brand new currency. It's going to be called the Liberland Merit. And so, every time we do things for Liberland, we essentially get paid in this merit. It's just like on this crypto. Is it really worth anything right now? Not really. not really. But, if we can get things off the ground, then it's going to be worth some kind of money. So it's like kind of, if you're doing any startup whatsoever, your company, your shares are going to be worth, zero. But if you can get it off the grounds, it could be worth, some real money someday. This is more, so like, that's the way we have to treat it, is basically it's like a startup company, a startup country. It's going to be run as a company for, the way that our kind of ideals work. So like, you just have to think about it as a startup. So, for the first few years, maybe even 10 years, you're working for free.
Right. Which brings me perfectly to the next question, which is what's the vision and the kind of like the end goal of this nation? Because I'm assuming Vit has something in his head that he's kind of like communicating to you guys. How does that look?
Yeah. So, I mean, and I know this might sound maybe kind of like gimmicky and whatnot, but if we can kind of create like a Hong Kong or like a Singapore in the Balkans, so it's going to be kind of a place like Dubai where, there's going to be like not really any taxes, and we're going to be like trying to like, do different like incentive programs for people to like donate money to the government and stuff like that. I can get into that a little bit later. It's like the EU, so the EU has a crazy tax, and we're pretty close to the EU. So like, there's going to be a lot of opportunity.
Sorry, I think, Brandon, did you catch that? Because I broke up a bit on my side.
Yeah, I think he was breaking up just a little bit too.
As soon as you started explaining the part after you said we can get into that later, it started to really kind of drop out. So sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah. So essentially, if we think about Liberland in a way, think about it as a free trade zone. So if we think about a free trade zone, like there's a lot of economic activity that can build in that with, like various like tax incentives and stuff like that, like with like low taxes, low regulation, brings a lot of investment into that area, especially with, it's about 7 kilometers of land if you think about like Manon. So like if you think about like Monaco, like I think of, I could be kind of wrong on this, but I think it's like one like square yard or something like that. It's like $100,000 like worth,
right.
Like of land, just because of like the economic activity. So we want to create a situation like that. That area of Europe is by far one of the poorest regions of Europe because of the wars and stuff like that. Everyone young is, like they're going to like Germany and, whatnot. It's like there's not much economic activity going on in the area. So it's just like, we can only go up from here. And if we can build, this place with like a lot of economic freedom, then it's going to create a lot of jobs, both in Serbia and Croatia. And, we did the study where we can easily increase the GDP of both Serbia and Croatia about 0.5% to 1% after about 10 years. So that's a pretty big change.
Just by bringing in the foreign investment.
Yeah.
Right.
And
gotcha.
Yeah, and we're already doing kind of like these free trade zones. So like we've been doing deals with the Serbian government where we've been having like these zones that like right on the Danube. And just by the way, guys, the Danube River is an international, like waterway. So any ship can go up and down and trade and travel and whatnot. So we got these free trade zones that are part of Serbia, but basically going to be administrated by the Liberland government, and essentially it's going to be no customs, no VAT tax. And right now we're trying to, basically get businesses to come to those free trade zones and start building. So before we start building in Liberland, let's build here and create jobs. Because if we're going to be doing anything, we need the local community to, actually like us instead of like see us as like an invading force or, someone taking, the land, especially with how like sensitive, the situation is there. especially, with the wars and whatnot. But, it's been over 25 years now, almost 30 years. So, but still that feeling, kind of there. So we need to bring jobs, economic development, and money talks at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like when I'm very familiar, I'm not too familiar, but I'm very familiar with the concept of tax-free zones around the world. You've mentioned Hong Kong, you mentioned Monaco, the Seychelles, you've got the prolific Panama Papers. There's a lot of these places around the world. And in research that I was doing, in preparation for talking to you, I did get a better idea of just how much money these nations make in foreign money passing through, and it's huge, it's massive, and it is an intelligent way of running a nation if you're limited by resources and geography.
Exactly.
Which is really essentially the challenge, which really gives you kind of only one option in terms of how are you going to, generate income for the actual country or nation. I don't even know if would it be a country? Would it become a country? I think it would,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Country. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really familiar with that. But I suppose, and I know that this is an offshoot of really, this entire conversation, but that also brings its own inherent challenges as well. When you're dealing with a lot of money coming in on the premise of tax benefits and things, it can get tricky.
It's going to be an interesting situation, and the best way for me to answer this is, nothing's going to be perfect. And if you have a citizen of Croatia and they're trying to do something illegal through like our banking system or something like that, then, they need to abide by, their country's laws and jurisdictions at the end of the day. If you got like Liberland citizens, in our just, jurisdiction doing their own thing and it's perfectly legal, cool. If you have like some other citizen of another country and they're trying to do like some kind of like money laundering, then we're not going to be okay with that. And I'll make that very clear, because we're not trying to get other countries to be upset with us. And at the end of the day, these countries need to respect our jurisdiction and we need to respect their jurisdiction, just like any other country. So if someone is trying to do something illegal and try to pass through and something like that, of course, like that's not going to be okay with us,
How do you,
and I know,
how do you get that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to ask, how do you get that recognition from another country as being a sovereign country or sovereign nation? Like if you had a passport, how do you get that passport recognized, or how do you get recognized in front of the UN? Like what's the process for that?
Yeah, so that's something that we're working on right now. So the best way to get recognized by the UN, the first step is to become a UN observer state. So essentially what a UN observer state is that if you have one country that is already a full-pledged member of the UN, essentially sponsor you, then you can essentially become a UN observer state. So what are some, UN observer states out there? So you got countries like Kosovo, the state of Palestine, Taiwan, and there's like a few other ones. Won't go into those details, but once you get to that status, that's a huge game changer, because then that essentially lets someone like me walk onto UN campus. So our delegation has been up to New York City many times during UN like General Assembly, which is basically a time where all these leaders come in and they do different meetings, different summits and stuff like that. We'll have meetings around the UN. Like seriously, like how many meetings I've, we've been like discussing things and I'll look out the window and the UN's right there. Which is very cool, very symbolic. One day we're going to get inside. So, and there's different ways that we can get inside. Like one of these things is that, and I brought this up earlier, is that I helped start a nonprofit here in the U.S. called Liberland Aid Foundation. And, we've been doing aid to like various countries. Like we've done aid to like Brazil, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Croatia, Serbia, a few others. There's actually a place in the UN where you can get like NGOs, like non-government at all organizations, basically have like join like this UN committee, and then if we have certain business, then we can walk onto UN campus. And that can help us get in. So if we can essentially get a foot into UN, then we can start, do like the mingling and like the networking and the schmoozing and the lobbying and all the fun, stuff. But, at the end of the day, if you're trying to get recognized by, X country, and it sucks to say this, but sometimes it just comes down to money.
Yeah. I would have thought so as well. Yeah.
Like, if a country is saying, oh, why would we recognize you? Why would we be the first country to recognize you? What's in it for us? Why would we put our reputation on the line? Mm-hmm. That's a lot. I think there's maybe like 12 or 13 countries that recognize Taiwan right now. That they're targets of China. End of question. China is trying to come in and build a highway system or a dock or something like that to convince them, you shouldn't recognize Taiwan. It's just money, which is sad to say, but when you're trying to do something as big as this, it just comes down to that. And so the way that we're trying to make it, like a little bit more wholesome is that we're trying to do like various like humanitarian projects and aid projects. And that's what, our foundation does, so we're coming in and bringing food or bringing like medical equipment, and then letting the government know that, hey, we've been doing this for you people, and then they're like, hey, we appreciate that, and open the conversation that way instead of just like trying to just give them like a suitcase full of money or something like that. Cause like, we're not interested in anything like that. And we don't want to get a reputation like that. So we're just trying to essentially give back to the world, because, going back to the whole like tax thing, we don't want to be viewed as some kind of like tax haven or anything like that. We want to, be a country that's really giving back to the world. If we're gonna be coming in, if we're gonna be expecting like recognition, and for us to be, asking other countries to, respect like our jurisdiction, we need to give back to the world first. So, and that takes time and that takes money. And so that's been like the big focus for me right now. It's just like raising money for this aid foundation to do different projects and, all these various, because like more or less, like if you're going to ask like, okay, which countries can we get recognition for, we're probably going to go after like the countries that are in such desperate need of help that, we can help them out. And they're like, yeah, sure. Like, we'll recognize you. Cool. Like, thank you so much. Rather than trying to go straight to the US or straight to like Canada or something, something like that. Like, that's going to be tough. That's maybe going to be like 15, 20 years from now. Because like, this is the long run, but we don't necessarily need like US recognition to start building. Once we start building, once you get, like, let's say like a small town going there, then we can come back here to DC and, and try to do something then. But there's like a lot of countries out there. And if one of them comes out and sponsors us in the UN, then we get UN observer status, and then it's just a domino effect. And once that happens, once you kind of get over that hump, things can get real really quick, for better, for worse, because it's just like, you are a UN observer state. Like, that's a pretty big deal. And I think we're pretty close to that.
Does that affect the passport in the same way too? So like if I was in another country and I was saying that I was coming from Liberland and I had a Liberland passport, would they kind of laugh at me and ask for a different passport? Or is there like a tier system for that? I think we talked about it before. But can you explain that again?
Yeah. So, I'll just be completely honest here. So I got a friend who essentially is from St. Kitts and Nevis. So St. Kitts and Nevis is just a small little island Caribbean country. She went to Singapore, pretty well-established country. And she went to, on the border, they had no idea what St. Kitts and Nevis was. They thought it was a fake country. They look it up on the computer like, oh, okay, it's legit. So if that kind of like, kind of gives you an idea, because like there's a lot of small countries out there that people just don't know. A lot of these border guards, they don't know. If you don't have like a Chinese or Russian or Indian or or the Colombian or Brazilian passport, they're not going to know. On the other hand, there's some border guards that will just look at the passport. If it looks legit enough, they'll give you the stamp and you go right in, which has happened to us too.
It sounds like a Mission Impossible thing.
or there has been some other situations where President Veit and the delegation has been invited, by this government or that government, and then we're coming in, and then we can use the Liberland passport to come in because we do have official business. Because if we're just flying into the airport, we're not necessarily going to be able to use our Liberland passport because they have all the computer systems and stuff like that, and they're going to have to use their other respected countries' passports to get in. But if we have official business, we can come in on that Liberland passport. If we don't have official business, we'll probably just use our other passport. So it's kind of in that total gray area, which, I guess it is almost like I'm like Mission Impossible. I guess that makes me feel like maybe cooler than I actually am.
So, okay, you guys, have you ever discussed, time frames for this project? Because I know it's a lot of work, and I don't think anyone wants to be doing all that work without having a clear kind of idea of a timeline in mind, especially when, you've got other things going on. And have you guys discussed, how much you think it's going to take to get this off the ground?
I mean, if you ask anyone who's starting their own company, that same question, if you're asking my opinion, that's a different thing. I think we'll become a UN observer state in probably 2 to 3 years if we're going by the rate we're going today, which is pretty, which is pretty awesome. After that, I don't know how fast or slow things are going to get, because we can, just, get that and then boom, 20 other countries be like, cool, yeah, man, we recognize you. And then, we get into some serious pressure because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters to us is able to get access to the land. So, a lot of people would ask hey, why haven't you started building? Have you been to the territory? Yeah, we've been to the territory. When we first stuck the flag into the territory, we've received about 100,000 applications, within the first few months. We're up to 625,000 applications. So people were for citizenship.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So 625,000 up to today, which I mean, we're not going to accept all of them. We literally can't. If you think about, Monaco and how small the land is, I think they have 33,000 citizens. Right. But that shows you how much, interest in our project, there is. We have about 100, representative offices, across the world. Clement, I don't know where you are located in the UK, but we got one in London. We got one in Brussels, basically all major capitals in Europe. We have some kind of office. Our one in Brussels is this huge, beautiful building. President Veit is from Prague. So, he gets a whole operation in a few houses. We got a few offices in Belgrade, Serbia too. Those are, kind of hotspots. So I'm kind of getting lost here and what I'm talking about because I'm just a little all over the place. But when it comes to time frame, I really don't know. It's going to be a minute for sure. Yeah. And I'm not going to be here to tell you that it's going to be successful or it's going to be the best thing ever. I'm not going to sit here and try to create a failed state. If I don't think it's going to work, then, why would I be here? I'm a busy guy, but I'm not going to, sit here and promise people the world, oh, this is going to be the next, Monaco, the next Singapore, the next, it's I can't promise you anything, but I believe in it. it's working out so far, which like for me, every single day, every single time like something big happens, it's always one of those things where it's just like completely like mind blowing, like, you know, like, oh shit, like that just happened. Like, you know, this is something like I can't talk about with anybody, you know, anytime soon. Maybe like telling stories, you know, with like a cigar, like bourbon, like 20 years from now, like, yeah, this conversation I had with like that ambassador, that happened. And that's because of the, you know, like, it's just one of those things. It's just crazy. And like, think about like what kind of background I have. You know, I didn't go to school for like political science. I didn't go to school for, you know, like diplomatic studies. Am I looking to go to school and like taking a few classes in that now? Because I'm like, yeah, because like if this gets like serious, like, you know, like there's certain like etiquette, you need to know, there's like certain things you got to know. But at the end of the day, like we're just people that are just really passionate about building a new country surrounded by, you know, these certain ideals, you know, and just how much interest we got when we first started out was just overwhelming. And it's just still continuing, like this, like momentum is just like building up, and it's just going further and further and further. And it's just one of those like wonderful things where just, you know, like all the planets align. It's just like, oh, this is actually happening. But like every single day, like you're kind of like in awe, even though every single time I talk about this, people probably think just like how like weird and crazy, or like, okay, cool. And it's like, yeah, I get how you feel. But like, it's just weirdly going very well.
The name Liberland, right? Because I'm thinking about the future now, thinking about you in your house in Liberland, right? And I'm thinking, okay, it definitely sounds like it's going to run on a capitalist ideology, right? Like it's going to have, you know, an economy. It's going to be, you know, kind of centered that way. But the name Liberland kind of like alludes to some kind of liberalism, right? So tell me a little bit about that. How is it going to be governed? What is that kind of going to look like?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, we're going to build our whole like governance system, and it's going to be kind of like online. So we're going to be using like blockchain technology. So, and a lot of governments are starting to do this, by the way. So, you know, they'll have like, let's say like the record keeping. So who owns what property? Are you voting for that person? Are you voting for that person? And doing all these like government services and then building it using blockchain technology. Right. Blockchain technology is the underlying technology for, you know, things like Bitcoin and stuff like that. I don't want to like nerd out too much about that on this podcast, but essentially we're going to be using this system that is just, I would just think about it as just like, it's just going to be very fast, efficient, smart, very like decentralized in a way. The nice thing is that, you know, we're going to try to, you know, decrease like things like corruption or like this as much as possible, because everything that's going on with government is going to be totally like transparent. You know, everyone's going to be able to see, you know, what's going on, you know, money moved from this to this. Like this project got funded exactly this amount because we can see it, you know, on the blockchain, all on the computer screen, and this fits the numbers instead of, you know, in all of our respected countries today, you know, we pay our taxes and then like, you know, you got like all these like scandalous things going on with like, oh, well, you know, that was $2 trillion. You know, how the hell was that $2 trillion? You know, like, where did that money go? You know, you never know. It's like trying to fix things like that, which is very, very important. So, you know, trying to decrease on the corruption, keep everything as transparent as possible using blockchain technology as much as possible. And we're working on that development. But, you know, when it comes to our ideals, it's really, you know, really encompasses the idea of like liberalism or and like capitalism. So if you're thinking about like taxes, we're not going to be having any sort of like taxation system, but we're going to find ways to essentially incentivize people to pay taxes. So it's like, all right, if you want to pay taxes, then you got a little bit more at stake, you know, what happens in this country. You know, or do like, you know, different things like that. So if you want to have more of a voice in the country, then you should contribute more. If the country goes up or down, then you have more of your wealth at stake. So you're incentivized to do things that are right for the country. Obviously, that can get complicated. That can be controversial. And when you're thinking about the whole idea of like liberalism, essentially, we live by the motto, live and let live. So whatever you want to do in your life, as long as you're not hurting anybody, we're cool with. That doesn't mean you don't face the consequences. So like if you're going to do, like a lot of people, I'm kind of like talked down to us like, oh, you're going to like legalize all drugs and all these other things. It's like, yeah, no, we're going to essentially be, I'm like Portugal, where all that thing is going to be, like legalized. But if you're driving a car and you're high and you hurt somebody, then the consequences on you, and those consequences actually might be more severe, But like you're free to do that. If you're in your house doing your own thing, and you hurt somebody, then those consequences are on you. So like it brings more accountability, back to the individual rather than,
right.
like the government at
very interesting.
Because we just
like
especially
more.
like, yeah, especially like being here in the U.S. and like the issues like we have with like the drug warfare system, and how like that hurts. Like Black Americans more than it hurts whites. It's so obvious. We don't want to have an issue like that. And then seeing how successful, countries like Portugal is, just like legalizing all the substances and how crazy that sounds, but like their crime like decreases then.
Yeah. I can see how that would work too. I mean, it's one of those things that it's almost like a wet dream for a lot of people to have a dramatically reduced government, because essentially, a large government with lots of rules and regulations and kind of basically telling you how to live your life, what you can and cannot do, getting involved in things they shouldn't be, like the, free market. And I am very excited about, smaller governments in many ways. A lot of economists talk about it. A lot of people, a lot of investors talk about that as well. So this sounds like an interesting experiment to me. I mean,
it is.
Obviously, obviously the size and the scale would be taken into account because, South Korea runs incredibly well as a nation, but I'm not sure if those policies would work in another, in a larger country with a different culture and things like that. But yeah, what you said to me now sounds super exciting.
Cool. Yeah. And it really just comes down to, what the culture is. So like when a lot of people that are moving to Liberland that are interested in Liberland, like it's a global thing. We got people like from Africa, we got people from South America, like North America, like Central America, Asia, like Europe, of course, and people who have these ideals, we have a certain culture, and we're just connecting like through like the internet with, people that, have our same ideals. And it's like, we don't like where we are now, we're not going to try to like change the culture, What, if like 90% of the country is like surrounded by like this one culture, like, maybe we should just leave, and that's not a big deal. You go live, your culture's over here and it's cool. Like I'll come visit, I'll hang out, but it's not like where I want like my family to, grow up. And so if you have like this amount of people feeling kind of like left out, then yeah, it is kind of like a wet dream. It is kind of like an experiment at the end of the day, and back to go what I said before, I'm not going to sit here and promise you that it's going to work or anything like that, but it's going very well. The project is just, the dream is becoming a reality in front of us. People like you, like, hey, yeah, like this, this does sound interesting. I am excited about this. And there's a lot of people that get excited. They're like, hey, I'm going to do this. Like I got off the phone yesterday with this guy who owns on a minor league, baseball team. And he wants to start like a Liberland baseball team. Like right on. We're trying to start like a soccer team. We got like a beer going. We got like a wine going. Like, we've been like talking about like trying to get like different like musical acts, and then try to, do something with like Eurovision and stuff like that. So like there's like fun things that we're trying to do to like, really embrace like other countries' cultures and stuff like that. And, I love baseball. I love soccer. I love music and stuff like that. So like, like we're all the same in a lot of ways too.
Yeah. That raises an interesting question though. Like, how are you going to zone the land? So like if let's say at some point in time, you begin plotting out the land so people can come in and buy it and develop whatever they want on it. And assuming it's free roam. And let's say I buy some Lieberland land. Is there like some Lieberland land? Would there be like zoning to like determine what you could do with that land, or is it completely like free roam? Is there like an outline for like what that plan will do?
So to be honest, that's something that is really core to our hearts. Like, what do we want? Are we just going to like, it's just a few guys going to sit in a room and plan out the whole city? Or is it going to be like, all right, let's buy land and go forth. To be honest, at the end of the day, like this is an experiment. We have different opinions, in our government, and that's something we really haven't decided. Something that I think we might tend to follow a little bit more is Singapore's model. So in Singapore, the government, obviously they don't have a lot of resources. Like the only resource they have is land. So we might do a situation where we might own the whole land, and then companies would essentially, like sign like a rent for like 99 years with, like the option to just like keep on renting it until they don't want it. So we might do that. And then that can help like bring money into the country, by essentially like, all these people just essentially just like paying rent. And what laws we have of that, like that's something that we're definitely still like debating.
Yeah. Cause it'd be kind of funny. It'd be kind of funny if you had the daycare next to the strip club, which was next to the baseball field.
People always bring that up.
Never thought about it.
I don't have an answer for you on that one.
I mean, that's the importance of zoning, which was why I was asking. So it would be kind of funny, but it could be also problematic at the same time.
Sure,
the daycare next to the strip club, next to the grocery store, next to the baseball field.
Dude, man, you can get everything done a lot faster that way.
That's true. But most people aren't as tolerant as you and I are, Clement. So,
well, I mean, like at the end of the day, there is a certain culture, that's surrounded about this. So, is there going to be like some certain people that are going to be, like, I mean, yeah, if all that is completely like legal, and you're moving that, like that's something that, no matter what your morals or ethics on that, that's something that people are just going to naturally be more tolerant of. Now, how we handle that and how our culture is really going to be, I have no idea. Like me personally, do I, like would I like a daycare next to a strip club? I think majority of people would probably be like, probably not. But how we're going to handle that, I really don't have an answer for you right now.
Maybe that's part of the fun of it all. It's just it's an experiment.
Yeah.
Kind of makeup of the whole thing is what will this project turn out to be when you kind of like let it run free.
It sounds good when you think about it.
Or at least
it sounds what?
It sounds really cool when you think about it. Like imagine if you had a Catholic church next to a mosque, next to the liquor store, next to the strip club, maybe next to the immigration office.
Yeah, maybe we need to have that like less of a division between different aspects of society and culture, so that we can become a lot more accepting and at least exposed to what other people are doing, and is that good? Is that bad? Is that, like at least you're aware of it. At least you know about it. I don't know. I mean, maybe in London, for example, I used to live in London, and there are literally mosques right next to churches. It's the culture's so mixed, And yeah, there's racism and things, but I just got educated when I lived there about, you know, different cultures and races and traditions and things. I lived with people I never thought I would live with. I ate things from their fridge freezers that I never thought I would eat. You know, when I was drunk one evening, I was like eating on kind of fried bugs, because I was living with a Zimbabwean family, and their snacks is like these kind of black bugs that are
and you would get drunk, and then you'd go into the Zimbabwean kitchen and eat bugs.
Yeah.
Cool story, man.
Actually, it wasn't because I was drunk. They literally said, I said, "What is that?" And they were like, "Oh, this is whatever the dish is called. It's bugs. It's totally fine. We eat them." And it was like, "Try one." And I said, "No." And they were like, "Please just do it, blah, blah, blah." Convinced me, I ate it. Another time, and this is not related to what we're talking about, I was drunk, went into the fridge, grabbed eggs for, I think they were my flatmates. And I realized after I'd eaten them, they were 2 months old. So yeah, the next day I thought I was going to die. I was just projectile vomiting everywhere. That's a different type of culture. It's an internal culture of laziness and drug habits that get you into that position. But, yeah, what I'm trying to say is I actually think that that's a very interesting experiment. There's a Heineken advertisement, which I really like. I'm not sure if it's real or fake, but they bring together people from different belief systems, different races and religions, different sexes, and they first have them explain what their views are on life and what they'll tolerate and what they won't. Some are like militant, some are very liberal. And then they put them in a room together, two of them, very opposites, and they give them challenges to do. And at the end, a bar appears, and obviously Heineken is the beer of choice, right? So they're going to open a beer. But the question they get is, okay, we want you to watch these videos of each of you. And it's basically their video they submitted on what their views and beliefs are and things. And then they both watch each other's video in front of each other, and they learn who they are, and they're like, And then the question is, you can either leave now, or you can have a beer together and talk about stuff. And they chose to sit down, have a beer and talk about stuff. And at the end, they're friends and they understand each other a bit better. And I think that could possibly be one of the outcomes of having a society which doesn't restrict things and kind of lets people just figure it out by themselves, you know?
Mm-hmm. And yeah,
it's about tearing down walls and building bridges. In the end, that's all it is.
Yeah, it you know, I think you're right on point. It just, you know, how many beautiful things could come out of this, and you know, it's an experiment, and you know, like that's what keeps me going. You know, like we don't get paid to do this. You know, it's just like volunteer effort, but just like seeing like that dream, seeing those ideals, just like. It gets me to keep going because, you know, it's not easy sometimes. It's not hard, you know, especially like running like this nonprofit. Like, you know, sometimes we can't get money and we want to do this. And we have to like tell like the government, hey, sorry, we don't have enough money to do that. Or like we're trying to do this and that, or like we're trying to get like our blockchain governance system going, and it's been like delayed for the past 2 years. But like, you know, and at the end of the day, like President Fit, like like he's basically like the all-time like dictator right now, because until we get like this blockchain governance thing going, we haven't voted for him, but like we're still like following him, and you know, and he's such a good friend and he's such a good leader, but you know, like he recognizes that he can't do everything, but you know, we all have like these different abilities and skills, and we come together, and you know, like it's like these gears that all work together, and like we're all learning each other, and you know, and you know, at the end of the day, like a lot of people that are getting involved with this are people that, you know, didn't really feel like they fit into like society where they are now, and they'll come together, you know, but are they really going to be like the right culture? You know, cause like some are Muslim, like some are Christian, like some are like atheists, you know, like some are from like Africa, you know, like some of them are from like Thailand, like some of them are, you know, from the Americas, you know, so like it's going to be a really big international community. and that's going to be the beauty of it, because we're all going to be centered around our certain ideals of how we want our lives to live. But there's going to be so much for us to learn. Someone's going to be eating bugs and someone's going to be eating like 2-month-old eggs, but at the end of the day, we came here for a certain ideal, and like, that's going to bring us together. But,
centuries old eggs.
I had to bring that up. That's funny.
Is there like an incentive program in place to donate to the Liberland Aid Foundation? Like, if you're an American or if you're from the UK, like Clement is, like, is there a benefit to doing so that helps Liberland, but also helps the individual to do that?
Yeah, sure. So if people want to get involved, so like that's kind of like going to this segment. If you want to get involved, you can email me at usa@gov.ll.land. If you want to become a citizen, there's essentially 2 ways to become a citizen. The first way is that if you have money, you can give us a certain donation that's around like $5,000, and then you can gain your citizenship that way, as long as like you're not like a terrorist or anything like that. Like, we do background checks and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Another way, for me, another way for me, I didn't have like $5,000 to just like throw around, so I just decided to work, and you can work for Liberland and kind of like earn your way. But there's 2 ways that you can donate. One way is to just go to Liberland.org and donate that way. If you want to donate to the foundation, it's a 501c3 here in the US. So unfortunately, only if you're American, there's tax incentives, that way to donate. I don't know about if you're in the UK and you donate to like a US nonprofit. To be honest, I have no idea. I might have to look into that. So I don't know if there's really any advantage to that. But the cool thing is that if you want to help out Liberland, this kind of works in giving you a choice. Hey, I want to help out Liberland. Do I want to help, fund like, essentially like the government, like there's a lot of needs in that department, or do you want to fund, like humanitarian projects? Since I'm the board of the nonprofit, I always tell people like, hey, you should donate to the nonprofit. If you're American, you can write off on your taxes, stuff like that. But, 100% of your money goes to, like different aid projects. So if you go to liberlandfoundation.org, you can see all of our projects there. We don't take a dime of the money. We seriously, it's just all, it's just all a voluntary, type of situation for us. So like those are like the 2 ways to donate, and those kind of like different ways that you're incentivized. And in exchange for your money, you get Liberland merits, which are basically going at 1-to-1 to a US dollar. And if you have 5,000 merits, essentially that's the way you become a citizen. So if you have 5,000 merits or more, then that's kind of like the way that you're a citizen. If you have like 4,999 merits, then you're not a citizen. So that kind of gets like into like the whole crypto thing, which I won't, which you should listen to on the other podcast that I did with Brandon on, if you want to get a little bit more into that. Yeah.
Nice. No, it sounds amazing. And honestly, I've had a really great time learning more about Liberland. I'm excited. I hope that it comes to fruition. I hope that all your hard work pays off and we get to see this culture, this mixed culture, this kind of trade destination where, amazing things are happening actually come to life.